Hello and welcome back to the anniversary. This week, 10 years ago, the country, England, the UK, everyone, including me, was stuck to their TV screens watching in complete and utter shock and horror at events that unfolded before our eyes. After killing one person and wounding two others in a 2-day shooting spree in and around Newcastle and then going on the run for almost a week, it was this week in 2010 that Raoul Moat shot himself in the head after a 6-hour police standoff. And today I want to tell you about that story. This story is mammoth, it's huge, so much happens, and because of that we're going to get stuck in and not come up for air because 10 minutes is not a long time to tell this tale. On Thursday, the 1st of July 2010, 37-year-old Raoul Moat was released from prison after serving a short sentence for assault. Moat was a nightclub bouncer and had been in an on and off again relationship with a woman called Samantha Stobbart. Their relationship was awful by all accounts, and even though they had a child together, the pair were not actually an item when Moat was released from prison. Over the course of the 5 years they had known each other, Moat had been physically abusive to Samantha. She lived in fear, and he was an aggressive man. I've read in places that he abused steroids, that he was obsessed with the gym, and he was massive. The jail sentence that I was just talking about was for assaulting a 9-year-old relative who was his daughter because he threw a chair at Samantha and it hit his kid. He also had 2 other children outside that relationship, but just one daughter with Samantha. While Moat was in prison, Samantha had tried to get on with her life. She found a new partner in 29-year-old Chris Brown. And things for the new couple seemed to be going well. They were going on dates and they were just hanging out and getting to know each other. Samantha was scared of Raoul Moat, and I think that needs to be made apparent. She had tried to leave him before. He had threatened her family. I read reports of him breaking windows at her parents' house, of him physically assaulting her, and she just tried to get away from him, and the prison sentence seemed to be a way for her to do that. She told him that her new boyfriend was a police officer in the hopes that it would scare him into leaving her alone, that it would force him to actually accept that they had broken up and maybe deter him from reacting. In the early hours of the 3rd of July, Samantha and Chris had gone out for the evening. They went to Samantha's parents' house and they were hanging out in the kitchen. What they didn't know is that Raoul Moat was in fact outside, in the garden, underneath the kitchen window. He was listening to them, and apparently, according to him, they were making fun of him. As Chris was leaving the house at 2:40 a.m, he was shot by Moat. The first shot, Chris was injured, and then neighbours and witnesses said that Raoul Moat put a gun to the back of Chris's head and pulled the trigger. Chris Brown died on the lawn of Samantha's mum's house. Raoul Moat then turned the gun on Samantha and fired more shots. She ran into the house, he fired through the kitchen window, and Samantha was hit. She was rushed to hospital, and this is when Raoul Moat goes on the run. He isn't heard from until he calls 999 the next evening. I've heard some audio from the police calls that he makes, and I've linked the podcast in the description. It's the 2-part podcast that I listened to. It took the guy 4 hours, 3 hours to tell this story because so much happens. But we're going to condense it for the anniversary. He tells the police dispatcher on the phone who he is and that he was responsible for the shooting at Samantha's mum's house. He also says that he's on the hunt for police officers and he knows that they have it in for him. He told them that he's going to kill a police officer. 12 minutes later, he put his gun through the window of a uniformed officer's car and he shot. PC RATHBAND was rushed to Newcastle General Hospital after being shot in the head, and miraculously, he doesn't die. He actually survived, although he lost sight in both of his eyes and he was never the same again. I listened to a podcast where he tells his story, and I've linked it in the description box as well for you. But warning, that one is a really difficult listen. They're all quite difficult listens, but that one it's really, really sad. The police connect the shooting at the house and the shooting of the police officer, and the news goes wild. Even though this case was an entire shock for the UK and everyone was sitting in their homes glued to their tellies watching for updates, Raoul had warned the police what he was going to do. He told his cellmate that he was going to kill police officers. He told people in prison that he was going to harm his ex and her new lover, but he wasn't deemed a risk on his release. For the record, Chris Brown was not a police officer. He was a karate instructor, but Sam was scared. The police issued statements to the public on the news saying that Raoul Moat was armed and dangerous. They said that he should not be approached by anybody if they saw him, and that if he was spotted, the police should be called. His image is one that I can recall immediately. Even when I was telling my friends that I was doing this story, they were like, oh, I don't know that name. And then I showed them the picture, and immediately the story just came to them. Somehow, while on the run, Raoul Moat managed to pen a 49-page confession letter, like a manifesto to the police. He also managed to ring them constantly and explain why he's doing what he's doing, how they've got it out for him. They end up telling him that Chris Brown wasn't a police officer, but he doesn't really seem to care. And he even managed to send his ex, Samantha, a get well soon card at the hospital that she was at while she was recovering. She was still in a critical condition, but she was on the mend. And I can't even imagine the horror of not only your abuser, but the guy who has shot you, who has killed your new boyfriend, sending you a get well soon card is just horrifying. Extra firearms officers from the forces including Cleveland, Humberside, West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire and Cumbria are brought in overnight to join the manhunt for Raoul Moat. It emerges that shortly before the attacks, Moat's Facebook status was changed to read, "Just got out of jail, I've lost everything, watch and see what happens." After all of this unfolded and everything went down, the police genuinely had a lot to answer for because they were told numerous times that Moat was a threat and they didn't act. There ended up being inquiries and things were referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission. It's a shame though, because a lot of the time the police, they take the stance of if only we had seen the signs, or like this is such a shock, but Raoul Moat didn't hide his intentions whatsoever. It was around 7 p.m. on that Friday evening that Moat was seen by the river less than 100 yards from the centre of Rothbury, which is the town. He was surrounded in moments. There were ambulance vans and all of the paraphernalia for a major standoff began to arrive. Raoul Moat was laying on the grass and he was armed with a sawn-off shotgun, which he had pointed at himself. A trained negotiator was in place talking to him, and later they arranged for food and water to be brought to him. The people that lived in the area were confined to their homes, but behind the police cordons, it was just a spectacle, it was like something out of a movie. I feel like maybe because this sort of thing doesn't necessarily take place that often, at least not on this scale in Britain, that it became a media kind of circus or event. It was almost as though the guy who was in the grass wasn't somebody who had murdered a person and tried to kill two others. It was that people were taking it as a joke. Some residents hung out of their windows and the village pubs were packed with people speculating on what would happen next as they were looking at the news reports. And even Paul Gascoigne, who is an ex-footballer, he rocked up to the police cordon and said that he was Raoul Moat's friend and they should let him through. Of course they didn't, but just to give you an idea of the spectacle that this became, it was like a joke. Raoul Moat, who was holding a shotgun to his head, was almost like a cartoon character to the people on the news. On Saturday, the 10th of July, Raoul Moat shot himself in the head, killing himself in the field that he had been hiding out in, thus bringing an end to the manhunt and the media spectacle. I've included all of the information for you to find out what happened after, at the police inquest, the reactions from Moat's family, because while he was on the run, the police were circulating his image. His family were objecting to that. They were worried that the police, the media, everyone was gearing up for a public execution. Also included in the description box are the subsequent arrests of those who helped Raoul Moat get out of Newcastle and into Rothbury and into the field where he was later found. If you do want more information on this case and to get the full picture of everything that I missed out on in this video, please take advantage of all the links that I've put in the description box. But that's it from me. The anniversary of the death of Raoul Moat is 10 years ago this week, and thank you for watching.